Hey everybody, it's Josie with Cedar Creek Homestead. Welcome to the farm. Well, here we are again in the house. It's sunny outside right now, but it's really chilly for this time of year. And we've got some storms brewing, going to be here in just a couple of hours. And then we actually have at least one night of freezing temperatures. And so we've got a lot of work to do to try to get some things covered that might be hurt if it does a hard freeze. I don't know that it'll do that, but we've got to kind of protect some things. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm a little bit under the weather myself today, and so I probably won't have a real long video for you, but I wanted to come and share with you some things because you guys have been so supportive of me, and I just don't want to disappoint you. And so I was thinking about using what's in your hand, and I got on this subject when I started thinking about my son, and it being the Easter season. Easter Sunday is next, this coming up Sunday. And Blade Ryan, he's 22 years old, and he loves the Ten Commandments. And he's watched it every year, all the way through, from the time he was a little bitty boy. He just loves that movie. And I started thinking about Moses. And was thinking about the story, and I was reading in Exodus, and of course this is Josie paraphrasing, but Moses was he was communicating back and forth with the Lord, and he had a speech impediment. Some say he stuttered, some say it was something else, but he just didn't feel like he was worthy, that he didn't really measure up to what God had for him to do. And so he was bringing this before the Lord. And the Lord just simply asked him a question. He said, "What's in your hand?" And so Moses answers, "The rod." And God simply told him, "Throw it down." And so he did. And to my nightmare, it turned into a snake. And then God told him, "Reach down and pick that snake up by the tail." And so he did, and it turned back into a rod. Well, down through Exodus and Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, you can read stories about Moses and the children of Israel, and that rod comes into play several times. At least 3 times there's story that using the rod in a positive way, and there's one way that Moses used it and got in trouble, and we'll discuss those things. First, you can imagine the children of Israel, they've had their, the death angel came and the blood was over the door, and Pharaoh let them go, and they're on their way. So they come to the Red Sea. They're facing the Red Sea, and Pharaoh and his army are behind them, and no doubt they were fearful and they were scared. And God told Moses to stretch that rod out over the Red Sea. And we know what happened. The waters parted back, and they were able to walk through on dry ground. Another time, they were thirsty, and God told him to take that rod and strike the rock. And when he struck the rock, out came the water, and the people were refreshed. Another time, the children of Israel were fighting with the enemy, and God told Moses, as long as you hold that rod and you hold your arms up above your head, they will prevail. But he would get tired, and his arms would lower, and the enemy would begin to prevail. And so they propped Moses up, and his friends held his arms up, and they were victorious. But then there was one time that Moses was told by God, the children of Israel were thirsty again. Moses was told by God to speak to the rock. And in anger, not at God, but at the people, in anger, Moses struck the rock with that rod. And because of that, because of his disobedience, he missed out on going to the promised land. Moses did. And so we have tools in our hand, but we have to know how to use the tools. We have to be obedient to what God is telling us to do with the tools. Now, Have you ever used a tool improperly? Now, Howie, he is big on tools, and he needed tools for his HVAC business, and he needed tools for the farm, and he would get tools if there was something that he needed to do the job properly. Why, he didn't think twice about getting it so that the work could be done in a timely manner and done safely and done correctly. But there are times I've been guilty of using a tool improperly. Now, Howie would be gone during the day, and I would need a screwdriver I was putting something together or needing to drive a screw in, whatever. And I didn't have a screwdriver, so guess what I did? And some of you have probably done the same thing. I went and got a butter knife, and I used that butter knife, and I got it in there. But you know, it worked, but the whatever it was that I was putting together never was really as tight and put together correctly as it would have been had I used the proper tool, if I'd used a screwdriver. Another time that I can tell you that I used an improper tool, I actually got hurt. Howie was gone for the day. This is when we were pastoring a church up in Missouri, and he was gone for the day, and I was hanging pictures on the wall, and I couldn't find my hammer, so I looked around, and instead of picking up a shoe to drive this nail, I'd done something very foolish. I had a pair of scissors that were old, heavy metal scissors with the sharp point on the end of them. They weren't dressmaker shears. My grandpa had used them at Tyson's chicken plant when he was a boss there. These really heavy, serious scissors. And somehow I had these scissors. And so I saw those, and I thought, you know what? That would drive those nails in that's just what I need. So I would have been okay just driving the nail in. But I can't remember now if I didn't get it in the right spot or I drove it in crooked or whatever. But I took the scissors and I opened them up and I put them around that nail head to pull it out. And when I did, and I knew better, guys, I was in my 20s and I knew better, that came back and it hit me right in here. And I've got a scar under my glasses on my right high up on my cheek and under my eye. And it was very close to putting my eye out, and I was very fortunate. The Lord was watching over me and my silliness that day, and Howie was so mad at me over that because it was such a dangerous thing. So he took the scissors, and I've never seen them again. They could be out in some of his things and that he just hid them from me, but it's been over 20 years and I've never seen them, so I really don't know that they're still with us. But that's just an example of using tools the wrong way, incorrectly. And we all have a responsibility to know and to use the tools that we have in our life. Now, y'all, of course, know that I'm not necessarily talking about hammers and wrenches and all that stuff. I'm talking about the things, the giftings and the callings that we have. All of us have something different. There are people that absolutely can sing like birds. They just have such beautiful voices. And there's others of us that make a joyful noise. But that's scriptural. The Bible says to make a joyful noise. And so if that's all we can do, then hey, if we're doing it for the Lord, then we're on the right track. But you know, everybody hasn't got the same giftings and callings. There are some people that are great athletes, and there are some that are talented in acting and music and writing stories and just doing all kinds of beautiful poetry and stories and illustrations. And I do good to draw a stick figure. I have brothers that are so talented in their artwork and could just sit down and look at something and draw it, and it just look exactly like what they were meaning to draw. And if I tried to draw it, you guys, you would think that a little child in kindergarten drew the picture, because I just have no talent when it comes to that kind of stuff. I can doodle, I'm a doodler, but I am not an artist, and that's okay. That's not my gifting and calling. If you look at your homesteads, or you look at your farms, or you look at, maybe you live in the suburbs or wherever you're at, find your strengths and and know your strengths, know your weaknesses. What is it that you have that's going to help you and your family in the dreams and the plans that you have for your family unit? Are there things that you can do that will help you guys get down the road further in getting your place out of debt? Maybe you know how to make soap, or you know how to make tinctures and lotions, or maybe you can that you're a really good baker and you can make and sell baked goods. Maybe you're a fantastic gardener and you could plant seeds and sell seedlings at the farmer's market. There's all kinds of things. But if that's not your strength, a lot of times, pardon me guys, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. There's lots of things that we can do. I think about Jesus when he was preaching, and he had a big crowd following him, over 5,000. And it was time for the people to be fed. And Jesus told his disciples to search the crowd. And they came back with a little lunch that a little boy had, 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Now, we know that Jesus had the power to do exactly what he did. He fed the 5,000 and over with this little amount of food. And he is great and powerful, and that's such a beautiful story, and we're thankful. But I wonder if the little mama that prepared that lunch for her son ever thought about, because she cared for her son and she done what she could do as a mother, bake those little loaves of bread and provide those little fishes for her son, that she was able, her efforts were used in the Lord performing a miracle. So see, there's all kinds of things that we can do. You're being a baker, being a chef, maybe you can carve. Maybe you have talents and giftings in sewing, and maybe you're a good seamstress. There's things that I can do in those areas, and there are things that I cannot do. I have tried and tried to knit, and I am not a knitter. I can crochet, but I can't knit to save my life. One of my subscribers, she sent me a beautiful, beautiful box of just little gifts, and in that she had sent me 3 of the softest, prettiest washcloths that she had knitted. And I thought, oh, those are so pretty, and I just don't have that talent. And so I know that there's other things that I can do to try to get me along the path. Maybe I can do some things that's going to help me on my homestead to get my place out of debt. And I think that is so important in this day and time, guys. Get yourselves out of debt if all possible. I'm not there yet either. We were well on our way. My husband, Howie, was a good provider. He really was. And I'm fortunate that I still have the YouTube channel, and the Lord is blessing there, and I'm thankful for that. But I'm still, I'm just like the rest of you. I've got to get myself out of debt too, and we got to put one foot in front of the other and keep going, and we'll make it. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, I'm not the biggest or the strongest, so how can what I have in my hands is weaker than what someone else has in their hands. I'm not big and strong like they are. I'm not able to do the physical work. And I've thought that myself about here on the farm. There are so many jobs that I don't know how to do yet, but I'm learning them. And sometimes I'm tempted to let you guys see me learning how to do them. And other times I think, oh, I would be too embarrassed for you guys to see some of the stuff that I've been trying to do. But anyway, people worry about having the strength, or maybe they're too little or they're too young. But I'll remind you of another person. Remember David? David's father had sent him to see about his brothers, and they were facing the Philistines, and the giant Goliath was out there, and he was taunting them and trying to get them to come out there and fight him, and nobody would. And David volunteered, and he was young. David was young. And so what they do, the very first thing they do is they put all of Saul's armor on David. And I just have this picture in my head of him being burdened down with all of this heavy old armor and not being able to move. And he would have been an easy target for Goliath, you know, not being able to move out of the way. But he listened and he obeyed God, and he used what he had in his hands, which was a slingshot and 5 little stones. And he slayed the giant. And God used him in that way. He wasn't too young. He wasn't too small. And we need to make sure that we're not afraid to move because that we think that we don't measure up. You know, sometimes it could be the other way. It could be, I'm too old to do those things. You know, the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, yeah, you can. We can all learn. I think I learn every day. I'll hear something, I'm thinking, man, it took me 50 years to learn that. And so we're not out of this thing yet. We can still learn. Another thing that we have in our hands, wisdom and knowledge. Now, knowledge, book knowledge, I don't think you could ever get all of the knowledge. I mean, there is just so much knowledge today. And, you know, you can go on the internet and you can look up anything. Now, personally, I like to have hard copies of books. That's just the way I am. I've always been a reader, and I like to have hard copies. I like to have, you know, the Foxfire books and the Back to Basics books and all of the things that first aid books and books that shows you how to make tinctures and books that show you how to do things, lost skills that we need to learn how to do again. You know, learn how to make soap, learn how to you know, have a smokehouse, or do all these different things that we've kind of left on the wayside. Those are knowledgeable things that we learn out of books. And then those around us that are full of wisdom. That's where you older people come into play. Because you have all of this wisdom to impart to the rest of us. Now, I'm 50, so I'm kind of pushing being on the older side or the younger side. Now, if you ask my son, he would say I'm on the older side, and that's okay. I'm embracing it. And but anyway, the wisdom that you guys have to impart. I wished I could go back and sit at my granny and grandpa's feet and my aunt and uncle's feet and listen all over again to the stories and the lessons that they had for me, and take it all in again and make sure that I had it. Because sometimes, you know, I can remember some of the stuff that I was told, but I can't remember it all. But you people that have wisdom, you know, that's a tool that you have that is needed tool. I mean, I think that we would all, that are at least in this community, would say that your wisdom, everyday wisdom, is an important thing that we need today, because we're losing it. If you look at all the things that's going on in this world, oh my, we have so many things that we have forgotten. We have so many lessons that we need to relearn, and you are just the ones that the Lord can use to help others. There are some YouTube channels that are just absolutely full of wisdom, and I'm thankful for that. I'm glad that you can look on there. And now you have to be wise yourself about what people are teaching you, you know, and don't just, I like to watch somebody that knows what they're talking about. You know, you'll get on there. It always aggravated Howie that he would be watching a video, just for an example, how to grow blackberries, which we know how to grow blackberries, but how to grow blackberries, and the person, they'll go through this whole big spiel, and then they'll say, well, this is the first time I've ever done it. Well, you know, we wanted people that knew what they were talking about, that this wasn't an experiment for them. Howie's dad, Papa Tex. Now, he's like some of the rest of us. He went to high school, graduated high school, and he didn't go on to tech school. He didn't go on to college. He got married and raised a family and worked hard his whole life. Worked on a public job, worked here on the farm. He was a boat mechanic, very wise. That's where Howie got his wisdom, was from his dad. They applied just everyday common wisdom. And his dad, Howie's dad, he worked for the school, and they had a monkey bars. You know the playground equipment that all the schools used to have, and I think a lot of them are getting rid of some of that now. But they had a monkey bars, and they were changing it out, and Tex brought it home with him. And he got this idea in his head. And you guys, he's a doll, and he is just really smart about these kind of things. And he had this idea in his head. He took this monkey bar, and I'll take a picture of it sometime and show you guys his ingenuity, what he did with that. He took the monkey bars, and I guess he cut it all apart and re-welded it, whatever. I'm not really sure myself. But back behind their house, between their backyard and the cow pasture, he hung it. And when you look at it, it's like a revolving gate, and you can go through it, but the cows can't come through it. It's really neat how he did it, and it was brilliant, I think. So ask yourself, what's in your hands? You know, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you have wisdom to offer? What is your, some people, their strength is hospitality. I have this lady in our church, or she used to go to our church, and she was so good. I don't have this, I don't have this particular tool as much as I would like to have it. I get so involved in all the stuff here on the farm, and it gets away from me, and it's not much of an apology, but she is so hospitable. When someone is hurt, or someone is sick, or there's been a death in the family, she's so good to bake and cook meals and take them to the families. When all this COVID stuff was going on, and there was quite a few people in our church sick, and in her church was sick. She goes to a different church. When her church was sick, and our church was sick, and she went out of her way to show her hospitality and to bring food. She brought food to us twice. Once when we were sick, and once, when after Howie passed away. And you know what? God can use that. All of these things that I shared with you today can all be tools that you have to reach other people. You can use them to get yourself out of debt. You can use them to make your family plan happen. And you can use them to touch under other individuals for the Lord. And I think that it's great for us to know all of the things that we have in our tool chest, in our hands. Now, we need to make sure that we know that we don't need to try to take the tools out of somebody else's hands, because they don't belong to us. When we were kids, my brothers were always getting my stepdad's tools out. We always had bicycles that were popping their chains off, or a tire on the bike needed to be fixed, or they broke something, was trying to repair it before our parents found out about it. But we're notorious for not replacing the tools, putting them back where they went. And I can remember my stepdad lining us all up saying, I'm missing whatever tool it was, and saying, if it's not back here in 5 minutes, everybody's in trouble. Well, most of the time he could tell. If my sister and I, a lot of times we didn't have any idea what he was talking about, what the item was that was missing. And so sometimes we didn't get in trouble. But boy, he would line those boys up, and he wanted his tools back. And it's because those tools were used in his livelihood. But he is a builder, and does fantastic woodwork, and just some of the prettiest stuff. And so those tools were important to him, and when we messed with them, we were messing with his way of making a living for the family. So anyway, I hope that this helped you guys, and I hope that I brought you something for you to ponder about what's in your hand. What is it that you can use? What is it that you have to offer others? And just know that I'm thinking about you guys. I'll just be honest with y'all. I'm a little bit under the weather. Yesterday I went and I got a shot, and I'm not feeling well today, so I'm going to cut it short. I hope I said something that will encourage you, that will help you, and we'll all stick in this together, and we'll make it, and we'll see each other again. Until next time, this is Josie with Cedar Creek Homestead. I love y'all, and as how I always said, we're gone.